thought it was a really beautiful day to get outside. So here I am. I wanted to do a video discussing my thoughts and outlook, I guess, on the recent film that I posted. To be able to experience someone's perspective, and it has a different effect on whoever comes across it. But on the flip side, you know that interpretation is subjective and it could lead to misinterpretation as well, which is the beauty of art, I think. Like you can't control all the time how it's received, but that shouldn't stop you from sharing your version, your vision, especially if it's one that is not told often and it's your truth. Continue to share your truth and speak life through your creations. Your story may be the story that someone will come across at just the right time to get them moving along their journey, to motivate them to walk a righteous path and do what is necessary to continue to battle this good war. And so with that, I wanted to give a little quick intro to myself because it will help, I think, a little with the context of the story, and very briefly, because this is not that type of video. But growing up, I grew up an only child, although I have many siblings. I spent a lot of time alone. And because I spent so much time alone, I spent a lot of time in silence, a lot of time where I did not necessarily apply words to my interpretation of what is occurring verbally. I had a lot of conversations within to make decisions at a very young age. I believe I had a level of discernment that was pretty advanced for how young I was. I learned very early that not all lessons in life have to be an experience that you yourself go through. You can observe the world around you and see how it affects other people's journey and determine right then and there if that's what you want for yourself. And that's how I learned as a child. I was a very observant child. And I feel that was conveyed a bit in the film itself, because it's, in general, is how I perceive the world. I would say that I am a quiet person, intuitive. And with that, I don't always have the right words at the perfect moment to share what I'm experiencing, especially when put on the spot or someone is asking me to share exactly what I'm feeling, because a lot of emotions that I I want to express, it takes me a moment to articulate it in the way that I want it to be perceived or conveyed, because how I processed it was internal. And that isn't always the easiest thing for me to do with words. And so I think that was what made me apprehensive of adding some type of monologue, whether it was like an internal monologue and it was me talking about what I was experiencing in the film or whatever. It just did not portray my actual experience that I wanted to have conveyed in that short film. And so if you saw the first teaser video I posted, I talked about how I was going through this cycle of following my intuition, and it led me to remove the monologue audio that I had and keep it as like this silent film feel, and that's how I felt it needed to be. And I'm very grateful that I came to that understanding through the Holy Spirit. It has been my guide. I'm noticing that through life at every chapter, and I'm just now putting a name to it, and I find that so beautiful. Oh, sorry, there is this butterfly that is just flying by. It just captured my attention. Wow. How the light hits nature at certain points. It's hard to gravitate away from it no matter what moment you're in, at least for me. But yeah, so talking about the film. So there, at the beginning of it, there's a scene where, it opens up and I looked confused and distraught. What I was trying to portray there is when we get to, a moment in life where we feel like we just got out of a storm and we finally have a chance to breathe. We don't necessarily have a very long time before another obstacle presents itself that we have to work through. And these obstacles are not necessarily supposed to hinder us. I believe that we are here to experience all of the habitual sinful acts that we do on a daily. And when one presents itself as an obstacle, this is an opportunity to correct it, to make the change in our life, to do the right thing when we once may not have done the right thing or didn't know that this was something that we weren't living righteously by. And it's tough when it just seems like one thing after another, but that just shows like how much of our life is playing out to be against us. There's so much in this world that is trying to do its best to convince us that we are not who we are, And the more that you try to be a better version of yourself, you start to see more and more of these obstacles show themselves, but they will start to dwindle out. And that's what the I don't know what you call that. Those were just, it was in my neighborhood. And also, everything that I filmed, I had no idea what I was going to do. Like, I just go out like I am right now. I found this spot driving I don't know if you can see these cars passing, but I was one of those cars. I saw them. I was driving by. I saw this beautiful area and I turned in, and this is where I was shooting today. That's how I typically go about my day. If I feel like something is calling me to a space, I go and see what I may be rewarded for, or what I may experience by following that feeling. And that's what happened that day. I just took my camera out, I started recording, and the story wrote itself. And so, yeah, so those two signs, the red, I don't even know what they're called, red yield signs, something like that. Those red stop, don't go any further. Those signs, that is supposed to represent, that yielding moment in our life where we are being asked to look at this situation and see it as a crossroad, meaning there's two diverging ways that you can go at this point. But right now, this is your yielding moment to observe what is happening and really understand how you feel, where you want to go in life, what is it that is causing you to not get where you want to go. This is that stop in life that we have, where we have that moment to observe how we feel, what's going on, and where we're heading. And this can be very emotional, a rocky type of roller coaster of emotions. And sometimes it can also feel, at least for myself, that you don't know what you're doing anymore. It's like you thought you were going the right way, and it seems like you met a dead end. And those are the very moments where I personally like to utilize them to pray, to ask for that guidance of being led in or down that right path. And that's what that moment was, to portray following, where I just fell to my knees and I just needed Yah's guidance. I just needed assistance, because when I feel like when I try to do things on my own, without that assistance, I may believe I'm doing something right, but because of all of the indoctrination in this world that is trying to convince us right is wrong and wrong is right, I end up doing wrong anyway, trying to do right. And that's why I believe it is so important, if you are spiritual and you do believe in the Most High, that you invite Him in everything that you do. And every step of the way, as often as you can. It will just allow for your journey to feel more narrow visioned, like nothing can change your mind once you receive that confirmation, because at that point, it's you having trust and your faith that you will see it through, because you have received confirmation from the Most High that this is what you are needed to do. And so from that point, it's you versus you. All of the different obstacles, all of the different entities in this world that are trying to convince you otherwise, you now have your confirmation of what is needed. So now it's just the work. And that's where discipline comes in. And so that's what that moment was supposed to represent. I also wanted to convey as well that, not all moments in our life where we feel it's this dark space, or we're at this battlefield type of spiritual welfare that we're experiencing is always the end road, like sometimes it is just a yielding area where we just need to take a moment to be appreciative of where we are and where we came from. Like we've had this very long journey to where we sometimes will say, I keep having all of these different things come up that just makes me feel like I'm not living the right way, without actually being grateful of the fact that you have gotten here. Like how many things had to go right for you to get where you are now, to think that this is the moment where it all ends, like that is what I wanted, the scene where I just, looked up in the sky and took it all in and was appreciative of the fact that I know my prayers and what I'm asking for will be received, and I can take a moment to breathe. I can take a moment to appreciate where I am now. I can be able to relax and consider everything that is up against me and know that I have gotten this far. So why do I believe that this is as far as I'm going to get? Being able to manage your emotions and stay focused, I feel, is something. Whoa, that thing just came right in my face. It threw me right out of focus, but we about to get back in. Staying focused and in flow, being able to observe the body as something as separate, not even as something, but it as a separate part of who you are, your mind, your emotions, to be that observer within the experience is a skill of mastery that I am on the journey to also do, and I'm working at every day to notice how I am feeling and not always take ownership of it. I also put a post up about how I was battling between knowing the difference between my own thoughts and ideas versus the ones that are maybe of this negative spirit that is trying to convince me that these are how I should see the world, how I should see myself, when I know it's not true, and how difficult that can be at times. Like insecurities. I personally don't believe that insecurities are who we are. I believe that insecurities are these entities that have that specific function to try to convince you that you are inadequate. And the more that we know the names of these entities, the more that we know the experience that we are not our emotions, our thoughts, our fears, that these are not who we are, we can relinquish any power that we've given to them and bind them and destroy them, ultimately getting to that point where they no longer have any impact on our lives. And that's honestly like the overall theme of what this film was about, like being able to take that leap of faith, walk to the edge, and know that you are protected. This world might try to convince us that there is no other way past that dead zone. There's no further outlet to cross. But the more that we continue to walk in this righteous path, we will know that there is no limitations on our soul, on how high we can fly, on how we can raise our awareness of the fact that we are more than this experience, that this body will come to an end one day. all that's inevitable for all of our existence, but that's not the story for those who believe in the Most High and eternal life and walk that path. There is life after this for us, and we are battling against those that wants to keep us tethered to our bodies so that we have the same fate as our bodies in the end of days. And so, yeah, that leap at the end was not anything crazy. Like, it was literally a depiction, metaphorically, of taking the leap in faith and following what it is that you know that you've been led to do. Because that is ultimately what this world is, what we're up against. The spiritual welfare that we're up against is convincing us we would not survive. There is no survival. There is no life after here, and whatever you do, nothing matters. You know, like that seems to be the very, what's the word? Like the polar opposite of duality, like experience. So, yeah, I hope that this helps if you did watch it and you're like, what is this girl even doing, jumping from the edge? Like, what was that about? I hope that explains it and gives some insight on where we go from here. Where we go from here. The last thing I will say is the biggest takeaway from a learning experience of like, okay, so what do I do now? You know, like now that I know this, how do I apply it? The biggest thing I would say is, one sec, let me see, I wrote it down. I lost my train of thought. This is my personal notebook. And this is what I wrote, just in general, because I wrote like a page and a half, so I'm just going to talk about it. But in general, I was talking about how I believe that every single day we are having an ongoing phase of deliverance where each day of your life, you hear people say like, you should be getting 1% better. And I agree with that, but not just better in your walk and your faith and your connection to the Most High, doing the small things every day that will change your life for the better in the Most High's eye, you know, like from his vantage point, how he sees how everything is working out for us. What are you doing every single day to confront those demons, those habitual sinful acts that you might be doing that you say like, oh, God knows my heart. Yes, that's true, but what is it that you can do to do better for yourself? And that's what I feel is part of our journey, is untethering each day from our bodies, what it craves, what it wants, because like I said, the body knows that its end is coming, but we are not our bodies. We see what happens to those who have passed along, you know, like there's no life left in them. But based on whatever you believe, where do they go? And I believe, depending on how you lived your life, will determine what that answer is for you. And so while we still have breath, while we still have another opportunity to live righteously, That's what we have to focus on, this ongoing deliverance. And yeah, I appreciate your time. I I don't know what else, but thank you for spending a moment of your day with me. I hope that this sheds some light on whatever it is that you may be facing currently. And I pray that if there is any obstacle that you have seen cycling for a while in your life, that you know, taking it day by day, one step at a time, even if you may stumble, Yah will always be there to guide you. Strengthen your connection through your intuition by trusting in the Holy Spirit. And may Yah's peace be with you. Until next time.